Welcome back. Today we're going to do an update video on the Dutch bucket system. These videos are brought to you by our Patreon contributors. Our top contributors are aquaponics.ai, growpockets.com, trueaquaponics.com, and glassbottleoutlet.com. Thanks for your support. Now you'll see I have two of my buckets are missing here. I'm just back draining the lines back into the drain. I had 3 of the 20 plants get timber rot, and I don't believe it's related at all to being the Dutch buckets. You can get that from a bunch of different sources. It could just be from pruning them from infected scissors, or just snipping them off and then carrying it from one plant to the other, or just could have come in from the air or something. So I lost 3 of those plants, and once you get those, there's really not much you can do for it except for dispose of the plants properly, and then I'll sanitize those buckets. I have a couple new plants that get started, so at some point I'll put some new small ones in here, and we might make it to the end of the year and get a few tomatoes out of that, but this area here is a lost cause for right now. Everybody's going to be very quick to point out about my leaf curling. I'm well aware of it. I had a few nutrient deficiencies that I've taken care of, and it's also about 107 degrees in here today, so the heat stress really does them in, and so they'll rebound a little bit overnight, and but tomorrow it's going to be hot again. So leaf curl with this variety seems to be very prevalent. This is an heirloom Amish paste, and they just aren't bred for greenhouse environments. So this is very common for me to see this, and it doesn't bother me too much. You can see I have plenty of tomatoes coming in. These are all looking really nice, and we should be in good shape. So overall the plants are doing pretty well except for the leaf curling, with plenty of tomatoes coming in on them. And I'm keeping up with the suckers, just pruning them off. So I'm running them up just one vine up the strings. And of course, no greenhouse is complete with a wonderful aphid infestation, so we'll get this under control too. Now last time we had a little fun with these Teeter totter tippers. No surprise at all, they get covered up with some bio slime and some algae in here. I was expecting that. I might make a cover for this someday, but this little bit of algae and slime doesn't bother me at all. Some people might object to it, but for the most part it doesn't faze me, so I'll probably just leave them like this. I like to watch these running, so it sort of helps not to cover them up and just see what's going on. Underneath, they've been watering quite well. You can see that these roots have actually spread out to where the water's dripping on them, so I guess that sort of solved that purpose. Again, not sure if it makes any difference or not, but I sort of like it. I did make one other adaptation to this design, so when it dumps the water and it flares it out and spreads it out this way, so it covers more of the shale. And this is actually working pretty well. It just fills that in and then perks out through these little holes on each side. So I think I'm getting much better spread. Same thing's going to happen. This tray will probably fill in with algae, but I think I can just run my finger through it. I did put these on my store for free, the STL files, so if you wanted to print these out, you can just head on over to the store. Obviously this pump is overkill for this setup, so I will need to get a smaller pump for it. Now I could leave this pump on, get rid of my funky mechanism here, and then I could just install a T, something like this, and put a loop of hose in here with a bunch of holes in there. A lot of people have suggested that, but I can run this with a little bit less electricity by slowing down the irrigation and just putting in the little teeter totter. And I still run the risk of, even with that loop in there, picking up some solids and having them get caught behind the T or in the holes of that loop. So I'm a little more comfortable just having an open-ended hose on that and then just slowing down the feed rate a little bit. So that's what I'll do in the future. I'll just get another pump and tie it in that way. Now this is the main problem that I'm having with the buckets. This is the first time this has happened. I noticed this the other morning, is that they're essentially coming root bound. And I was hesitant to use these at first because I thought this was going to happen, and then I would see so many commercial growers using beto buckets with their tomatoes. I was like, oh, maybe the roots aren't getting that huge, but obviously I'm running into a problem with them clogging the drain line. So this is just filling up completely and then going out of the little hole on the side here. Looking at what I have out of the plants that I removed out of the system that were diseased, you can check the root balls. I dumped them out in the compost pile, and they're maybe about 50% filled, and a lot of the roots come down along the bottom and we're getting trapped in that filter fabric that I put in there. So maybe the filter fabric that I thought was going to help keep the roots getting into the drain line is actually creating more of a blockage. So we're going to have to do something about this. This is a constant flow coming in here all the time. So once I do get some blockage in here, it's just going to start overflowing. So I am going to go back to what I originally said long ago, was that I was going to pump the water into these instead of let them fill by gravity. And then I can put that pump on a timer and basically just turn it on maybe once an hour for a couple minutes. And that will allow the bucket to partially fill up, distribute that water through the stone, and then it can drain itself out. And that should stop this from happening in the future. Another problem that I've run into, and I know this is one of the buckets where I didn't put the weed barrier in the bottom, is that the roots are growing out through the hole and they're actually clogging up that drain line, and it's backflowing in. So you can see a slight problem with that. So we'll have to cut these off, and I guess we're going to have to examine this on a regular basis. So just as a comparison, these are the tomatoes growing in the deep water culture bed. They're a little bit larger, but I did start these about a month before the beto buckets. And these have been growing essentially about the same. I really can't tell much of a difference between the plants. I'm still getting the same nutrient deficiencies and the leaf curling. Again, that's my own fault. It really has nothing to do with whether they're in the deep water culture or in the beto buckets. But the tomatoes, they'll still ripen up and they'll look pretty good. The heat is really causing a lot of stress on these plants today, even with that evaporative cooler running. The sun has started to go down at the end of filming this, and it's about 95 degrees in here now, so it's starting to feel a little bit better. Overall, the deep water culture currently has had less maintenance, but I'm still learning a little bit about the beto bucket, so I've had to clean off those roots, adjust the water flows and whatnot. With the deep water culture, I'm keeping the water well aerated. I'm using my infusionator nozzles, and that does a great job keeping the dissolved oxygen levels up in these beds. So overall, I'm very happy with the deep water culture beds, and overall I am just happy with the beto buckets, but I think I can tweak those a little bit more and get a little bit happier with them. Once again, I wanted to thank you for watching.